How has the popularity of the internet affected what you do?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if it has, or not that I'm aware of at all. Would my movies look any different if they were made in a pre-internet era? I wouldn't be able to. I mean, obviously I couldn't check Twitter afterwards to see how people felt about certain aspects. But other than that, I don't have a feeling, other than maybe an awareness that you're competing with even more stuff that's being offered with YouTube and with all those things. And that people's patience because of that is much shorter than it used to be. But I don't know if in another way it's that affected by it.
Do you think any of the desires to tell certain stories have changed? I mean, it's like we used to turn on 60 Minutes back in the day to see an expose on something, and it was exciting, and you'd hear the clock ticking and all that. I mean, now all we have to do is just pick up the phone for 1 second,
right,
and look for a notification. And to see something tragic happen, or something amazing happen, right, or some celebrity has an opinion on something. And, you know, you used to see Mike Wallace sit down and like really grill somebody. And
right. Now, I think that is maybe why it's a little bit immune to that, is that long-form storytelling process, which so far hasn't been that affected by it. The 90-minute to 2-hour arc has, the internet has not yet dismantled that. They have, all the short form is there, and the Vine, and the, you know, all the Snapchat, everything, which I think now more companies are starting to cater to that, to tell their stories in 20-second or 2-minute chunks or something for the internet generation. But so far what I'm doing has been a little bit immune against that, because it always dealt with the long form that has not been that influenced by the internet, I think.
Looking back now on your career, why are you still here in Hollywood? Well, what stories do you still want to tell? Why does it still drive you to be here? You talked about ambition for this one character that you were thinking of, and how you were either not like that character or you were.
Right. I mean, the very superficial level is really that this is one of the only places in the world where you can make a living doing what you love, if filmmaking is doing what you love. But then also it's a very high standard of professionalism in the town, obviously. The crews you get here, the creative talent that is here. And you have to have so many meetings to make, like you have to have 100 meetings with different production companies for one project to then actually get off the ground, that I don't know how you would do that living anywhere else, because you'd have to fly into Los Angeles constantly to kind of have meetings. So at the moment, I don't see any other place in the world that I could live and be a professional filmmaker. But that might well be possible. I have no experience with it. So, plus I have a family here now. I like Los Angeles as a city, which I know is a very unpopular thing to say. I really like it. And I don't know why I would want to live anywhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look back on, I told you I was watching this Raymond Chandler documentary, and you know, he wrote about LA as someone from the UK, and romanticized a lot of it. I know he talked about, you know, the criminal element, but there are many parts of it that you leave and you're like, I miss that. I would miss having access to so many things right at my fingertips. So yes, the traffic is terrible, and it's very crowded, but yeah, there's so much here. And it's also very beautiful. Parts of it are incredibly beautiful. Yeah. So I know sometimes we focus on what I feel like is too much negativity on LA, and you know, I've been guilty of that. But there are some really fantastic things about the city. Yeah, okay. And you can walk to so much. But back in Germany, watching these films, whether it was a dubbed version of, you know, Carrie Fisher delivering a line in Star Wars, did you know you were coming here? Was that a plan?
No. I went to film school just for writing. I came from the Dungeons and Dragons field, which was my favorite game, still is my favorite game. Just the rush of being able to create something out of nothing, just because there's a group of people sitting around making something up, suddenly it exists for everybody, was mesmerizing to me. So I thought, how can I do that professionally? Writing was the answer, so I was looking for a writing program, which happened to be the film school in Germany. And So I did the whole screenwriting program, and that's kind of where the filmmaking bug got to me a little bit. Because it felt weird that there's another person marching in, suddenly taking my story and being the director and whatever, when I'm like, I've already got that story in my head, why would I need someone else to tell it to the actor, the production designer, the cinematographer and stuff. And then I came here for directing. So I was 20 or something when I realized that I was going to make films. My teenage self didn't know that yet.
If you were to go back and give yourself advice, what would you say to yourself? Even if it's just some like very quick sort of flippant advice.
Stay away from a certain producer that completely destroyed a movie that I did, which had a very harsh impact on my career. That's not very good advice for anyone else watching, but if I have to be honest, that I would have to spot one thing where I was like, but I also didn't have any influence over whom the movie was being sold to. So I don't know if I should have pulled out. Looking back now, I would probably pull out before I make the movie. But I didn't know that then, and I can't blame myself for not knowing that then. But that would be the one piece of advice that I would give myself.
I think anybody who's been in an industry long enough has probably had a story or two like that.
Right.
And so you don't know at that time. You have no idea.
And I also don't want to blame everything on it. Or like, oh, I'd be making blockbusters now if that one experience hadn't happened. But it was a very tangible moment where things went very differently from the path that everything else was kind of lining up to be. But obviously there's no good in sitting at home and going like, I've been wronged, that just happens. I've also had a lot of luck with a lot of stuff, so I guess that's just how it goes. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
What are the stories you want to tell?
I don't know if I have specific kinds of stories I want to tell. I just want to tell good, surprising, smart stories. I think it's almost more about the how to tell the stories than what to tell in the stories, which goes back to, I don't know if I have one big message for the world, which is why I don't tweet. I have nothing to say to the world that the world needs to know. It's the same with a movie. I don't know if I'm in possession of any truth that will change the world if I just can get the world to hear it. And it's the one story that keeps me awake at night. It's really just about trying to make stories that really have an impact on you as a viewer in the moment. That to me is kind of my goal to which I'm responsible for my craft, basically. And what happened in the bigger context of which messages are being put out in the world, I don't think that I'm a filmmaker that rises to the level of I am putting stuff out into the world that is of any significance in terms of political change, social change, all of that. My cosmos is kind of smaller and more intimate and is more the authenticity of the human experience in the moment, of the individual in the moment. And I'm pretty happy in that field.